actually achieve their dream, and how that failure as an athlete led me to help give birth to a company called Valor Esports. Across my athletic journey, I learned many lessons, and it's those lessons that are helping gamers around the world excel in the world of esports. But it's not just excelling within a computer game, it's learning behaviours, habits and lessons that can help them find other successes in their life when game is complete. And this is what I want to share with you today, is how we've developed my experiences and what we know from coaching frameworks and other sports into the gaming world. And hard work, focus and simplicity were really vital aspects of what I did from an athlete to grow my ability. But the most important part of my journey was starting to learn a framework for success of how do you actually develop something at speed to make sure you can be top in what you do. And it's really this lesson of making sure I don't overcomplicate something that's what's driving us forward. And we're making sure that when we look at a gamer's perspective, we want to take these complex skills that they have and we want to try and develop a philosophy where they can simplify it and actually create achievable goals within the world of gaming. Before I move forward, I want to talk about a stereotype that's quite close to me. Gamer rage. Now, you might know a kid, you might have been this kid, you might know someone else's kid who has this behaviour. They might throw a controller against the wall, they might act out, and you're often left asking, it's just a game, what are you going on about? And that's where I want to share some of my own experiences as a junior athlete. We got the GOAT, Roger Federer, smashing a racket in 2012. We've got King Kyrgios, everyone's favourite athlete, smashing a couple of rackets nearly every match he plays. And the only chance I'll ever get to look better than these two, I prepared for myself with a trophy, Mr. Nobody. Mr. Nobody had a real issue as a junior athlete. I remember when I was 14, I smashed about 3 rackets after losing a tennis match in one of the biggest tournaments in Queensland. And I came from a good family, middle class, but not good enough to replace $300 rackets and continue training for the next couple of months. I also had a habit of picking fights with walls after I lost. Once I lost that fight bad enough that I broke a bone in my hand. I was about 14 or 15. And what I remember is people weren't really that outraged by my behaviour, the way they are with gamers. They were disappointed, but they knew what I wanted to achieve. They knew I had a dream about being a professional tennis player. And for some reason, there wasn't the same level of outrage that we talk about gamers. And it's this data on this next page that really drives what we do. And in 2021, the #1 dream job across the US teenage data that they take for YouGov was a professional streamer, at 11%. In the top 5, professional esports player was 1% behind professional athlete and famous actor. Now, the gamer rage and my behaviour as a junior athlete was inexcusable. It's not acceptable. But it did put a perspective for me that sometimes the way I behaved was attached to my self-worth as an athlete and what I was trying to achieve. And I think we see this a lot in gamers, but they're too embarrassed to actually talk about that being their goal, even though they're happy to admit that that's the dream for them. And I often wonder how we could make this different. And this is why we've moved into esports. Esports is interesting. As an athlete, when we started to research it as a company, I did have my misconceptions and I had a few concerns that were legitimate. But it wasn't until I actually visited a high school and I saw a Year 12 captain with a disability talk about the highlight of their school career being competing in an esports event against able-bodied people. It was the first time that they actually felt like an equal to other people. And then I started to look a little deeper and I actually learned what they were doing from a training perspective to realize that they had a lot of dedication, they had a lot of focus, and their dreams weren't that dissimilar to what I wanted to achieve within tennis. And that's what really drove us forward to say, well, we have this unique opportunity. There's 3 billion active gamers every single day. Can we provide tools and ways for them to learn the same skills that we do with junior athletes so that one day when the gaming dream is over, they're left with the ability to use those skills in other parts of their life. For us to do this, we needed a training framework. We needed a way to take what we know works in sports and apply it to the online gaming world and into the classroom. And this is what we've done. We've taken a four-stage framework that I utilized growing up as a junior athlete, which is called the competence model. You have unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and unconscious competence. That's what I want to share with you is how we've taken this model, how it's applied in sport, and how it's been applied into gaming now to get these results. Unconscious competence. You don't know what you don't know. I don't care who you are, if you're an absolute beginner or an expert in what you do as a sport or a skill, there is something you currently do not know. From a beginner point of view, that actually might be a beginner that doesn't actually know what skills exist for them to start accelerating their ability. From an advanced person, it could be a very, very intricate skill within your current technique that someone's overlooking or you don't understand to allow you to get to that next level. This is quite similar to if you came to me for a tennis lesson and then I just didn't teach you what a forehand, a backhand, and a serve is, and we just started playing. And that's currently what's happening in gaming. So what we've done is we went to professional gamers, the ones who are actually making money, who are in the top 100 of what they do, and we asked them to record everything that they can do at a high level, all the way back to when they first started playing the game, to understand what are the stepping stones that they've taken and how have they actually executed that journey. Conscious incompetence. So this is now, you just know what you don't know. You're aware of what you don't know how to do. And at this level, the most important part is developing a technique, but also preparing yourself to put that technique under pressure so it can be ready for a match environment. If I was to do this in tennis, I would get you to come to me for a lesson. I would teach you how to hit a tennis serve, and then I would ask you to hit 20 serves in a row. Don't worry if it goes in, I just want you to focus on your technique. No pressure. Stage 2, once you get a little bit better, I'm going to ask you to hit 20 serves in a row and every time you don't do your technique right, we start from zero. You start to apply that pressure, you start to get them a little bit more frustrated and focused. Stage 3 is stage 2 again, but you're going to hit 10 serves in out of 20, so now we have a measurement of 50%. So there's an actual result based on what they're doing in training. Now, the competence model is really, it's not explored within the esports world, so we have to figure out a way to still apply that pressure. And this was really, really interesting. So within the classroom environment where a lot of these esports clubs are growing, and we're seeing the ability to influence players' focus in a healthy way rather than just gaming mindlessly at home, is we ended up building around 200 different drills and the resources that you can use to level it from very simple to very difficult in a way that hasn't been done before. Conscious competence, probably the hardest stage and the one that everyone gets stuck at. So conscious competence means you can do a skill, but you have to think about it when executing it. And quite often what you see here is when someone is at the stage and they make a mistake in a match, you won't ever see that skill again. It'll get thrown away because they're just too worried of making more mistakes. There's two things you need to do to be successful to get through this stage. The first one is you need to put this under a lot of pressure to the point when it's muscle memory, so they don't have to think about it, but you have to build a belief in that individual as well, that they're capable of doing it in a competitive environment. So from a tennis perspective again, I would put you under fatigue, what we call the speed wobbles, so your muscles are starting to get so tired that they're speeding around. And I would also make you do self-reflection. I would ask you to identify when you've been successful doing it at training and in your match environments on a regular basis. Every training session, every match, did you achieve it? You can do this. You know you can do this. Look at the amount of times you've done it. For us to do this in gaming was really tough. So what we had to build was ways for players to evaluate themselves after doing a training session, and also give teachers moments where they could be a coach. So we built performance tools that allow people to actually track their performance, do testing, and see the data if they're improving or not, which allows the teacher for that coachable moment It also allows the player to identify in the right way when they've done something correctly, which is really building that self-reflection, which long-term is going to build up resilience, and it's going to be one of the vital skills that we want them to take away from gaming, which is resilience and self-awareness. The last stage, it's probably the easiest, but the hardest to do, which is unconscious confidence, which means you can do something without thinking about it. This stage is just putting them in a real-life match environment. In sports, this is super easy. You just go and play a match in a real competition, and you evaluate if that skill has upheld itself after the match. If it hasn't, we're going to go back to stage 1, and that's when everyone gets angry. From a esports environment or a gaming environment, we've got to get them offline, and we need them to compete in a real-life competition where they can see the competitors and they're in a team environment. So you've got the external pressures, and we need players and coaches evaluating and doing self-reflection every match, and starting to apply that theory of if I wasn't able to do it and I got scared of using that new skill, then we need to go back to level 1 and keep going through this reiteration and keep improving as we go. What I'd like to share with you is some of the learnings that we've had since we've implemented this process. We've been running pilots across the US, Australia, and the UK, and we've learned something really, really important. That the role of the teacher is probably more integral than a professional esports coach. So there's third-party coaches that existed that you can come in and specialize in gaming. The problem is most of these coaches are quite young and struggle a lot with dealing with young students. And what we're seeing now is the role of the teacher is that they're able to facilitate the class a lot more effectively. And using the tools that we've implemented with this framework, they're actually getting a lot better results. And the other challenge that they're running into is the wide variety of abilities between players. So this is very similar to sports. Sports is probably one of the hardest things from a grassroots level is when you have a beginner who wants to be involved, which is fantastic, and an advanced player who's playing and gets frustrated because it's too easy. So what we've had to do is look to traditional sporting frameworks, and what we came back with was what I used to use a lot with our high performance tennis programs in Queensland, is the change-up model. If you're not sure what the change-up model is, essentially it's a way to redefine what winning is. It allows you to change the way that you coach, it allows you to change what the scoring method is, the game rules, and most of all, it provides the ability to have inclusion because you can make it easier or harder for individuals within that training to level the playing field. And the most important one within the change model is time. With schools having such difficult time constraints around what they can do, is making sure it stays focused and it doesn't just become gaming and not thinking. The second one, democratization of resources. One of the hardest parts of my athletics journey was playing a sport that was super expensive. So tennis is an incredibly expensive sport, and I came from a good family, but I wasn't able to afford the level of requirement or resources that my competitors had. And that made it quite difficult because there's quite a few times on a regular basis where I wasn't able to find a guiding light when I was stuck at that level 2 or 3. And for us to have the impact that we actually want to have in gaming, we not only need good resources, it needs to be accessible. And that's where the platform comes in, but also within the platform, we need long-term views. We need people looking at their long-term training in a 10-week to 12-week cycle. And we need the players to understand those stepping stones of how do I actually become a professional? And more importantly, what do I do if it doesn't happen? What is the pathway after I can finish my training or the dream doesn't come true? The way we've solved that is not only training plans, but starting to partner with different industry partners who can provide that life up to gaming, in particular US college systems, which are starting to utilize gaming from a scholarship point of view, as there's quite a lot of money coming through from the sponsorships in those clubs. So as I stand here today, I'm full of gratitude for what sport and gaming has provided for me. It's essentially taken me from an athletic journey to a coach, to a co-founder in a tech company. And it's allowed me to find my purpose, which is trying to help other people achieve their dreams while also learning life skills along the way. And the quote on the board right now is from a really well-known performance trainer within the tennis world, and I think it sums up perfectly what we want from the world of gaming. You don't get results by focusing on results. You get results by focusing on the habits and behaviors that produce results. And it's this mentality, joined with our vision that every dream deserves to be chased and every individual deserves the chance to excel in their passion, that is really driving us forward. And I hope that you join us on this mission, that we can create a world and support the next generation of students where the belief that your passion, dedication, and hard work can truly turn your dreams into reality. Thank you very much.